Ball screens, savvy crafty point guards with athletic rollers surrounded by elite snipers has become the norm within the NBA. However, the Sacramento Kings opted to include a lot more handoffs within their offense under their new head coach Mike Brown. They led the league in handoffs with 902 across their 89-game season. A handoff with Sabonis as the handler and Huerter as the receiver generated 1.19 points per possession for the Kings, the best two-man action in the whole NBA last season. Today we will break down various ways teams opted to guard the Kings handoffs and how you can punish each type of defense within your own games. Firstly, setting up your man for any action is vital. Backdoor cuts are a powerful tool in dribble handoffs, as often your man is guarding the gap, meaning they are in between you and the ball, as we see Chris Paul doing here. This means that he is in poor position to guard the handoff, as he is what we would call loose, allowing Keegan Murray to get the back cut. Being a threat to backdoor then opens up the option to fake this cut to get more open into the handoff. Keegan Murray here fakes the back cut, bringing his man down, engaging his frame, and then suddenly changing pace, creating separation into the handoff for the easy three. This is a concept that we will refer to as gas break, hitting the gas in one direction before slamming on the brakes and going the other direction. Here we see Monk execute the gas break concept well, faking one way, slamming the brakes, faking the backdoor, and then sprinting to the handoff. One key to understand if you are someone who utilizes this concept very well in handoffs is that your defender is likely going to go under, leaving you open for the three. Here Monk doesn't get his feet set, he ends up forcing the drive and turning the ball over. Huerter is great at setting his man up, always engaging them and not just going through the motions, faking backdoors and then using the handoff to always keep his defender on their toes, opening up more opportunities for himself and his teammates. This flows into our first type of defense, the under. Jrue Holiday here successfully gets under the screen, twisting his body around Sabonis to get around and meet Monk on the other side. He is then able to get over the second screen, preventing Monk from shooting a three, and then running him into Brook Lopez, forcing a tough, contested two. A key solution versus the under is hiding behind and shooting the three, usually using the hop footwork and moving back towards where you came from. Terrence Davis was great at this all year, moving back towards the corner to hide away from Poole, who was trying to go under and meet him on the other side. Another key solution is to downhill the under. Here we see Gordon try to go under, but Huerter runs through the handoff, getting the ball on the ground quickly and beating Gordon to the spot. This puts Gordon on his hip and allows Huerter to find the easy finish. We see the same thing here with Monk. Harrison tries to get under, Sabonis expertly hangs around, using his frame to keep Harrison at bay, allowing Monk to beat him to the spot, getting downhill and finishing. Finally, you can always use a rescreen or a twist to punish the under. Here we see Kyle Anderson go under versus Barnes on the first handoff, who expertly waits for Sabonis to twist, screening in the other direction. It is often quite difficult to go under two screens back to back, and if they are able to go under twice, it's often more expected on the second one, which means you can get more on balance to shoot the three, as we see in this clip with Fox. On the twist, this often ends up placing the defense in a drop coverage, and Sabonis here expertly uses a Gortat screen, rolling and screening off the dropping Gobert, allowing Barnes to snake into space and find the finish. Speaking of drop coverage, lock and trail, which is essentially another name for drop coverage off the ball, is another common style of defense you will face in handoffs. The goal of the lock and trail is to force the receiver to get the handoff by getting attached to their bottom hip, as we see Giddey do here, using their frame and physicality to create more space between the receiver and the person giving the handoff so that they can get through, negating any advantage. This is commonly known as blowing up the handoff. Grayson Allen here shows us a great example. He is able to blow up the pin down, getting through, preventing an open three. He unfortunately stumbles but doesn't give up, steals the under. He gets back attached and around the Sabonis screen, gets onto Huerter's hip, uses his strength to squeeze Huerter away, forcing him into a tough, contested floater, which ends up being blocked. Our first key solution versus this type of defense is a curl. THT is able to blow up this handoff, but this puts him in a poor position to guard the curl. All you need to do versus this type of defense is to not stop moving. Instead, curl tight to the handoff and look to get a pass from your big and a finish at the rim. Against lock and trail teams, the Kings opted to use more get action, which is a fancy name for a throw and go. This gives the big the option to keep the handoff, which we see Sabonis do here. Garland blows the handoff up. That's hard to say. Sabonis then moves the ball high to prevent a strip, and then he keeps the handoff. This catches Allen off guard, as Allen is expecting to guard another action, such as a curl or a pin to a handoff, allowing Sabonis to get to the rim. Keeps can also be used off the dribble. Here we see the Kings get into a sideline and a bounce play, which is usually a pin to a handoff. Sabonis suddenly gets into a crossover, which takes Landale by surprise as he's expecting the pin to a handoff, and this gets him downhill for the dunk. A great execution of the keep. The defense is thinking that they're going to run the same play, and then Sabonis suddenly crosses over, changes speed well, keeping the handoff, and this gets him a big dunk at the rim. Against a lock and trail, using run-through footwork, as we see Huerter do here, catching on his outside foot, then using a 1-2 curl to create separation is a great way to gain an advantage. But what I want you to understand is that lock and trail is essentially drop coverage. They are trying to run you off the line and force you into the big. This means that we get to apply our drop coverage solutions. Huerter here is run off the line, which forces him to drive downhill. Against a drop coverage, Sabonis' goal is to roll and get his head behind the dropping defender. This forces a 2-on-1 and lets Huerter make two simple decisions. If the big stays with Sabonis, he will use a floater or a finish at the rim, and if they stay with him, he will find the roller, usually using a lob pass or a quick bounce pass for a finish at the rim. Switching is very common in the NBA, and the solution is often quite simple versus switch. Golden State is famous for their switching, and here they are either switching Draymond onto Keegan Murray or aiming to double or flat show and get the ball out of his hands. The solution in this situation is simple. The person giving the handoff must look to slip after giving the handoff, as we see Metu do here, with Murray finding him for the foul. This is important as there are two players at the level of the ball, meaning if you slip out, you're going to force the weak side corner player to tag. This then creates a 4-on-3 advantage on the weak side. The same thing happens in this clip. Sabonis gives the ball, Jordan switches or flat shows onto Huerter, Sabonis slips to the rim, and Huerter is able to find him with a wrap bounce pass for the finish. A big key on the slip is you may not always get the ball straight away. So as Sabonis does here, you can use a seal to maintain the advantage you created through the slip. Sabonis keeps his man high side whilst he waits for Huerter to find the passing angle, which he eventually does, finding Sabonis for the finish at the rim. As the dribbler, you can also look to keep the handoff. Here we see Sabonis looking at the corner as if he was going to give the handoff before suddenly changing directions towards the rim. Finally, the last type of defense you'll commonly face is the denial or the face guard. Your best bet if you're denied going into the handoff is to do the opposite gas break from what we did before. You want to fake up as if you're trying to get the handoff, suddenly changing pace and getting a back cut to find the finish.
You may have noticed that I've been away for around 2 years. During this time, I've been working as an assistant coach and in the video/scout department for various professional teams around New Zealand and Australia. I thoroughly enjoyed my times within these environments. I'm excited to be back making this style of videos for you all, sharing what I've been learning and hopefully being able to help as many people as I can.